Hi, I'm Damien, and this is the official channel of the BLS Coin Collectors Club, bringing you news and insight from the fascinating world of numismatics. If you enjoy my content, don't forget to like and subscribe. Hello everybody, it's evening on Wednesday 8th of May 2024. There's been a bit of a change of plans for today's video. Instead of talking about the early history of the BLS Coin Collectors Club, today is kind of an unboxing video. I recently got a bulk lot of British coins which I bought off eBay for less than 20 quid, and I wanted to share them with you. Before we get started though, I do need to issue a correction. I stated in the last video that the US quarter featured a portrait of Benjamin Franklin. Thanks to my knowledge of US history being very limited, that was wrong. The quarter in fact shows George Washington. Sorry for any confusion. So the coins arrived in individual inserts, all stored neatly in this nice box here. Some are duplicates and some I already have in my collection, but that's okay. It's fun going through them. I've already got them sorted in date and denomination order, so let's get started. First off, we've got a farthing from the reign of George II. This coin has the date worn off, most of these early ones do, so it's not fully identifiable, but it belongs to the period from 1730 to 1741, as indicated by the younger bust of the king on the obverse, and the use of the letter V in the king's name. The later ones use U rather than V. These George II halfpennies, like the farthing, are all severely worn, so the dates are not distinguishable, but they all belong to the period from 1729 to 1754, as that was when halfpennies were issued during this reign. Another coin with a worn-off date. This halfpenny belongs to the reign of George III, and it can be dated between 1770 and 1775. Official George III issues after this date used Matthew Boulton's steam press and were minted at Soho using the car wheel designs. As we can see here, from this 1806 farthing. The 1806-7 coinage was the last official issue of copper coins during the reign of George III, and all were minted at Matthew Boulton's Soho Mint in Birmingham. This is the second and last farthing to appear in this collection. The farthing continued to be minted in copper until 1860, and then in bronze until its last issue in 1956. Finally, it was withdrawn from circulation after 1960. Here are a couple of 1806 halfpennies from the same coinage. This third Soho coinage, the first was in 1797, the second in 1799, was issued only in 1806 and 1807. Those were the last officially minted halfpennies until George IV's second coinage of 1825. Our last entries from the reign of George III, these 1806 pennies also belong to the third Soho Mint coinage. While the last circulating copper of the reign was issued in 1807, some extremely rare patterns were minted dated 1808, although none of that date were produced for circulation. Ultimately, copper wasn't minted again until 1821, and no pennies struck until 1825. We're about to leave the 19th century behind as all the remaining coins come from the 20th, but first we've got this 1826 halfpenny from George IV's second coinage. This copper coinage persisted through the remainder of George's reign until 1830, and the same style was used for the copper of William IV and Victoria up until 1860 when copper was replaced by bronze. Skipping about 90 years of history, we reach the early 20th century. Here we've got a 1914 halfpenny of George V, minted the year World War I broke out. This is actually the last pre-decimal halfpenny in this collection. The halfpenny continued to be minted until its last issue of 1967, and was withdrawn from circulation in 1969 as part of the decimalisation process. This 1928 penny features a smaller, modified bust of George V on the obverse. The smaller portrait was adopted on bronze coins in 1928 in an attempt to remedy the problem of ghosting, where an outline of the bust appears on the reverse of the coins. This especially affected the pennies and led to the modified effigy coins of 1926, and then the smaller bust coins of the reign's last 8 years from 1928 to 1936. The price of silver continued to rise in the 1930s, and to alleviate the problem from 1937 onwards, 3pences were issued in a nickel-brass alloy alongside the earlier silver issues, the last of which were minted in 1944. These new brass coins were minted with 12 sides, and depicted a thrift plant on the reverse, alluding to the use of the word thrifty to mean saving money. Silver stopped being used for circulating British coins after 1946 due to its rising price and the need to repay the US for loans during World War II. From 1947 onwards, coins like this sixpence were struck on cupro-nickel, an alloy of copper and nickel which resembles silver in colour, and continues to be used now for UK coins from the 5p up to the 50p. These 1948 shillings show both reverse designs used for the shilling between 1937 and 1951. Minted in roughly equal numbers, shillings were issued with two separate reverse designs, one representing England and the other representing Scotland. The shillings of Elizabeth II would continue this but use different designs for each of the two reverses. This 1949 shilling, featuring the English reverse design, shows the loss of the monarch's title Emperor of India. While earlier coins featured the legend Ind Imp, standing for Indiae Imperator, India gained independence in 1947, and King George VI lost that title as a result. Following Indian independence, the reverse of the sixpence was entirely redesigned in 1949, although this reverse design would last for only 3 years until the accession of Queen Elizabeth II. The first florins, 2 shilling coins, appearing in this little hoard. These coins of 1951 were minted in the last year of George VI's reign. The king died in February of 1952 and was succeeded by his oldest daughter, Queen Elizabeth II. The first circulating coins of Elizabeth II's reign, the coinage of 1953 was also the last to feature the legend Brit Omn, Britanniarum Omnium, all of the Britons. This sixpence features the new reverse design, which would be retained until the last circulating pre-decimal issues dated 1967. The new Scottish reverse design features on these 1953 shillings, and it would be retained until the shilling's last issue, also of 1967. The new reign saw new designs for all the brass and cupro-nickel coinage, and the florin was no exception. The English rose features as the centrepiece, surrounded by the thistles of Scotland. This 1954 threepence features a portcullis design on its reverse, another new design for the new reign. The coinage of 1954 loses the legend Britanniarum Omnium. This was dropped from the Queen's titles due to the increasing number of former British colonies gaining independence from the British Crown. These are a few more threepences and sixpences of Elizabeth II's early reign from 1954 to 1962. All of these feature the designs which will be retained until the last pre-decimal issues of 1967. By the early 1960s, preparations for decimalisation were already beginning to take shape. The 1955 specimen is the last sixpence in this collection. They were last issued dated 1967, but continued to circulate into the decimal period, albeit rarely, as 2.5 decimal pence, until being withdrawn from circulation in 1980. The half-crown, 2 shillings and sixpence, was the largest pre-decimal circulating coin minted on a regular basis after regular issues of the crown ceased in 1902. This coin features the royal coat of arms depicted on a shield, variations of which decorated the half-crown from 1816 until its last mintage in 1967. This 1964 shilling features the English reverse design used during the reign of Elizabeth II. The two designs circulated equally throughout the UK. Neither design was intended to circulate specifically in either England or Scotland, serving only to symbolise both countries' equal status in the Union. The UK decimal pound coin, first issued in 1983, revived this tradition, adding Welsh and Northern Irish reverse designs from 1985 onwards, and changing the reverse each year. Another florin and half-crown. The florin would survive decimalisation and circulate alongside the new 10p coin, which had the same size and face value, until they were both replaced by the smaller 10p first issued in 1992. The florin was finally demonetised in June 1993, the last of the pre-decimal coins to go out of circulation. This is the last florin in this little hoard. The last pre-decimal penny in this collection, this 1965 specimen was one of the last pre-decimal pennies overall. The final date of issue for the pre-decimal penny was 1967, although coins bearing that date continued to be minted until 1970. The pre-decimal penny was demonetised along with the brass threepence in 1971 as part of decimalisation. This 1965 shilling with the English reverse is the last shilling in this collection. Last minted in 1970, although bearing the date 1967, the shilling continued to circulate alongside the decimal 5p, which was the same size and weight as the old coin. New smaller 5p coins were introduced in 1990. At the end of that year, the old 5p and the shilling were finally demonetised. Here we have another half crown, this one minted in 1965, by which time preparations for the transition to decimal coinage were well underway. This 3p, minted in 1966, is the last 3p in this collection. Like the other pre-decimal coins, these last appear for circulation dated 1967, although they were minted right up until 1970. The 3p was withdrawn in 1971 as part of decimalisation. These two half crowns are the last pre-decimal coins in the collection. Unlike the penny, 3p, 6p, shilling and florin, but as with the halfpenny, the half crown was withdrawn in 1969 as part of early decimalisation preparations. And so we reach the decimal era at last. The 5p and 10p coins, worth 1 and 2 shillings respectively in the old currency, were first minted in 1968 as part of the transition period. Intended to ease the UK into decimalisation by introducing some of the new coins earlier, this process also included the introduction of the 50p coin, equivalent to the old 10 shilling banknote, in 1969. The half crown and half penny were demonetised in 1969 also as part of this process. On 15th February 1971, the last of the new decimal coins were introduced and pre-decimal currency officially came to an end. These are the decimal halfpenny, penny and 2p first introduced in that year. The old system, 240 pennies to a pound, thus 12 pennies to a shilling and 20 shillings to a pound, was replaced by a simpler system of 100 new pennies to a pound. Thus the face value of the new penny was equivalent to roughly 2.5 old pennies, although the coin was far smaller, about the same size as the old farthing. The 2p was equivalent to about 5 of the old pennies. Of these new coins, the penny and 2p are still minted today. The 5p was replaced by a smaller version in 1990. No circulating coins were struck in 1972, although roughly 107,000 of each denomination were struck for mint sets. A commemorative crown with a face value of 25p, 5 shillings in the old currency, was struck. This was to commemorate the 25th wedding anniversary of the Queen and Prince Philip, and some of those did enter circulation. Circulation coins resumed minting in 1973, as we see here from these halfpennies and pennies. The first 10p coin in the collection is this 1974 specimen. First minted alongside the 5p in 1968, the 10p replaced and circulated alongside the florin, the 2 shilling piece, and it shared the same face value, size, weight and metal content. These coins continued to be minted until being replaced by a smaller version in 1992. The 7-sided 50p coin is the only missing piece from this nearly complete set of 1975 circulation coins. The 50p, first struck in 1969, became one of the most iconic decimal pieces and retained its shape when it was replaced with a smaller version in 1997. A commemorative crown was struck in 1977 to celebrate the Queen's Silver Jubilee, while we see here more circulation coins covering the years 1976 to 78. Of these, the penny and 2p still circulate today and can be found in change, although the circulating versions will now be very heavily worn, being over 45 years old. To put that in perspective, by the time the pre-decimal penny was withdrawn from circulation, a 45-year-old example would have been minted in 1927 and would have circulated during the reigns of 4 different monarchs. This is the last halfpenny of the collection, minted in 1979. The halfpenny, due to its small size and limited spending power, was very unpopular by now, and proved to be no longer economically viable to mint from the early 1980s. It was last minted in 1984 and was demonetised at the end of that year, leaving the penny as the lowest value circulating coin in the UK. Another nearly full set, including the halfpenny we just saw. These 1979 coins exclude only the 50p. The 10p we see here are the last in the collection. They would continue to be minted up until 1992, when they and the still circulating 2 shilling pieces were replaced by a new 10-pence coin with a smaller size. The 2 shilling and large 10-pence coins were demonetised in June 1993. The latter was the last pre-decimal coin still circulating. Various Coin Club records from 1991 to 1993 document club members' efforts to collect these coins before they were withdrawn from circulation. Now we get into the 1980s. These coins from 1980 and 81 were the last to be minted with the words new penny or new pence on the reverse. Decimalisation was 10 years in the past at this point, and the coins were no longer new to the general public. From 1982 onwards, the word new was replaced with the denomination, so new penny became 1 penny, new pence on the 2 pence became 2 pence, and so forth. Also making its debut in 1982 was the 7-sided 20-pence coin, which featured a raised rim and incuse lettering, perhaps inspired by the cartwheel coins of 1797, which we talked about in episode 2. The halfpenny continued to be minted until 1984 with the legend halfpenny on the reverse, but was demonetised in that year. These pennies feature a new portrait of the Queen on their obverse. The previous portrait, designed by Arnold Machin, had featured on all decimal coinage from 1968 until 1984, a total of 16 years. As the Queen's reign continued, the need arose for a new portrait which would be used on all coins from 1985 onwards. This portrait was designed by Raphael Maklouf and would be used up until 1997. This 1988 piece is the last 5-pence coin in the collection. Following a survey which indicated the British public's desire for a lighter coinage, the 5-pence was replaced with a smaller version in 1990. At the end of the year, the older coins and the shilling, which had circulated with the same face value since decimalisation, were withdrawn. This is the last 2-pence in the collection, dated 1989. The UK's bronze coins, the penny and the 2-pence, were replaced in 1992 with new coins made of copper-plated steel, although the bronze versions still circulate to this day. And so we come to the end of the collection. These 2 pennies, 1992 and 1994, are the last 2 pieces. They are also the only coins in this hoard to be minted from the copper-plated steel now used for the UK's formerly bronze coins. Along with the smaller size 5, 10 and 50-pence coins introduced in the 1990s, the 20-pence first minted in 1982, the nickel-brass £1 coin introduced in 1983, and the bimetallic £2 coin minted from 1998 onwards, these coins still circulate in the UK. New depictions of Queen Elizabeth appear with changes of portrait in 1998 and in 2015. And with the passing of the Queen in 2022, new designs appeared to mark the start of the reign of King Charles III. I hope you enjoyed exploring this selection of coins. Next time, we'll return to our previously promised coverage of early Coin Club history. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a comment, and don't forget to like and subscribe.